Bear with me 1 second. All right, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone who is watching and following along with this edition of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame's Hall Call interview series. I hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy, staying safe. I am Will Driscoll, the Executive Director of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. And again, just really want to thank everybody for joining us. Soccer is kind of going to be the theme of our conversation today. In fact, the theme of what we're talking about. But soccer and interest in leagues both here and abroad has been growing steadily over the last quarter century since the U.S. hosted the World Cup in 1994. And shortly after that World Cup, we saw the advent of Major League Soccer. And fast forward 26 years, we now have 26 teams in the top North American Soccer League. But as the sport has grown, so have its lower divisions in the United Soccer League. 3 years ago, professional soccer came to the peninsula when Lionsbridge FC, a USL League 2 side, kicked off its inaugural season in 2017. The story of how the team formed is brilliant, and we're going to get into a lot of that later today. It's truly a grassroots effort from concept to completion, affectionately known as Spreadsheet FC at the start. The team that took the field, that will be taking the field for its fourth season in 2021, is now known as Lionsbridge FC, and they got a great and solid support base behind it. Today on Hall Call, we're actually joined by the founder and owner, MAGFEST, as well as head coach, Chris Whalley of Lionsbridge FC. So guys, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Will, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So Mike, Chris, and anybody who wants to follow Lionsbridge on social media, you can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the handles are at Lionsbridge FC, all one word. So be sure to follow them. They've been around for 3 years. As we mentioned, they're going into their fourth season. But let's just go ahead and get this started. USL League 2, the league that you guys play in, the league that Lionsbridge is affiliated with, held their season this summer, albeit it was a bit modified. I think it was 7 matches as opposed to the 14 that you normally see. How was the league able to find its way to the field? And what, aside from the obvious, was the most challenging part of this season?
Well, I think from our perspective, I think it was just all the unknowns as we were rolling through the spring. I don't think we really knew if this was going to pass. I think we didn't know whether the league was going to be able to continue to hold together and still have a season. There was just so many unknowns, just like there were across all of society. And so I think it made planning difficult because we really kind of made all of our plans for the 2020 season. Chris had the roster set up and squared away. We had all of our 2020 dates were set, ready to go, group ticket sales done, promotions done, ready to go, kind of all the different elements of game day. We were ready in February, and our season wasn't going to start until April. And so as this all happened, I think we went back to the drawing board. Chris and I were on the phone, nearly every day talking about, what are we hearing? What do we see? And so, as we got closer to the summer, and the COVID numbers were going down, I think we were really optimistic at that point, based off of all the Virginia guidelines, that we were going to be able to play. So we put together a 7-game schedule. We had to make a venue change. We were lucky that we held on to, I think Chris can talk about, but the just overwhelming majority of our players still were able to join us. Our host families stayed on board, our sponsors stayed on board. And I think the piece, once we kind of looked at it and said, I think we're going to be able to play, we worked really closely with Riverside Health System, which is our sports medicine partner, to be able to figure out how do we have a good, safe return to play? What do we need to do to make sure we're following all the protocols, keeping everybody safe? A lot of these guys hadn't played in 8-9 months at that point. And so in a competitive environment. So there were a lot of considerations, both from an on the field standpoint and off the field standpoint. And I think we felt really fortunate that we were able to play. A lot of sports entities didn't have that opportunity in different geographies and different sports. So we were fortunate that we were able to get a season in. The fans had a great time. I think the players had a great time. We were able to win all of our games, score a lot of goals. And so I think, at least for the 90 minutes that we were out there playing, things felt normal. And I think that was the thing we were hoping would have happen. because sports brings people together in such a way and brings a sense of normalcy and kind of a rhythm to people's lives that I think almost nothing else can do. And so, I think hopefully we played some small role in giving people something to be happy about and cheer for over the course of the summer. And, it's one that we don't want to have to ever do again. But, I think it went well, all things considered.
Well, Coach, kind of piggybacking off of what Mike just said, the 90 minutes that you guys were on the pitch, that was normal. Everything else around this was not normal. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you have to change up your approach to the season, to recruiting players, to just kind of everything that you would normally do as a head coach of a soccer team?
Yeah, obviously it was a challenge, and a challenge that hopefully none of us will ever have to face again. In terms of recruiting, we didn't really, in terms of our recruitment, have to recruit that many new players, because I don't want a specific number. I'd say 90% of our guys who had committed to coming in, or 85%, were able to make it. I think a lot of the reasons on that was guys committed to stay through the summer if they were from overseas, or, a lot of our domestic guys, like Mike had mentioned, hadn't played soccer in 8 or 9 months and were desperate to do something. And if that meant that we had to go through all these procedures and protocols just to be able to get out of the field and train, then they did that. I remember the first training session we had, and it was literally as if, I'm coaching grown men, and it was like working with 5-year-olds. It was the first time they'd been out there, and they were so excited. And some of the play at times was like 5-year-olds as well. But it was one of those where they were just really, really excited to be back out in the field. I think as athletes and as a coach now, you kind of often define yourself by the sport that you work in. And I think a lot of us found it very, very difficult in that period when COVID was, at its peak and we weren't able to do anything, to kind of know where we were. So to have the sport that they love and to be able to do that again really helped them kind of, guide where they were going with things. But the Riverside were fantastic. They did a great job of helping keep us safe. We followed all their procedures and protocols that they worked with US Soccer with. And it was just like little silly, funny things. But we're playing a game and we weren't able to pick the ball up and throw it. So I've got guys like they're running to pick the ball up when it's gone out of bounds to throw it, and I'm blowing away. It's like, no, stop, kick it, because that's something you've naturally done for your whole life, And then the goalkeeper would make a save in a game. Then we'd have our interns. The goalkeeper would make a save because they were holding the ball using their hands. They would have to throw the ball away to get that ball disinfected and pick a new clean ball apart the goal. So it was quite strange. But we followed all these procedures and it allowed us to play. So we talked about the new norm and said, guys, we're out here playing. Not many people are. Yes, this is weird, but embrace the weird. So,
and if you couldn't tell, obviously you're a local from Hampton Roads by the accent. So we're happy that the local guys done well.
Yeah, born and raised.
That's right. Well, so you're talking about, recruitment and the players, and some of the players hadn't been on a field in 8 to 9 months. In USL League 2, kind of give people some insight as to what sort of players are you recruiting? Because these obviously, they're not the top level MLS people, the people that are in the United States men's national team pipeline. But what sort of players are you recruiting to come play for Lionsbridge?
So some of the guys, for example, we had on our team, we had a guy who was in the U16 national team pool. We've got a guy who's played for the U19 national team. We had a couple of older guys who probably at the tail end of their careers. They probably won't like me saying that, but ex-professionals who still want to play at a high level and give a lot of experience and guidance to our younger players. And then most of our other guys are elite level college players that are trying to play in an environment like ours, which is ultimately going to put them in what we'd say like a shop window to try and get a USL or an MLS professional contract. Tell me if I'm wrong, Mike, but have we had 8 guys in 3 years gone professional? Is that right? Yeah,
that's right.
So that's something that we talk to our recruited, new players about a lot, that we're a great avenue to send guys to professional clubs, whether that be domestically here. You've got Joe Rice is with the New England Revolution too, and he's been involved in our MLS squad. We've got guys that have gone and played in Europe, and then the guy went and played in Australia. So different places, different countries, but ultimately young, hungry guys that are trying to make their way in the game is probably how I describe it, with a couple of older guys who help them along the way.
You need that sage experience on the team to help guide the younger guys along the way. That's definitely a great feather in the cap for the club and the organization. 8 professional contracts in 3 seasons. When you talk about this season and preparing for the most part, a younger group of guys, and you're just talking about how you have to learn almost a new way to play, no throw-ins, giving the ball away to get a new ball. You guys went 7-0 and you outscored your opponents 32-1 over the course of the season. How was the team able to kind of put all these ancillary things aside and focus on those 90 minutes on the field?
I think the hunger that the group had was fantastic. I think we had a bunch of young men that really want to be the very, very best soccer players they can be. So that helps. I think the fact that we'd not played for so long made them really, really tuned in and want to listen and want to learn. I think we've all had coaches where you kind of wish the coach would just let you get out there and play. And Willie, shut up and stop talking. I think these guys had probably not heard a coach's voice for 7 or 8 months, apart from on Zoom calls and things like that. So they were probably so excited about being there. They really engaged and listened. Anthony Moore, who was, ran most of our training sessions. He's the assistant coach up at St. Francis in Pennsylvania. Did a fantastic job and put some really good sessions on. And I tried to really, as a coach this year, take a step back in terms of running sessions, more talking to guys about how they were feeling about things, about their mindset, about where they were mentally with things. Because as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think one of the most difficult things that we've probably all dealt with COVID, outside of the illness piece itself, is it's changed all our lives mentally in terms of you're not able to do the things that you normally do. The guys were having to stay home. They weren't getting to socialize as much. So we try to spend a lot of time really making sure this group came together in a safe environment in a way that we, during training, if that makes sense. Because a lot of other times they weren't able to spend that much time together. So it was a very, very kind of business-like relationship. So we tried to personalize that when possible. Why did we win so many games? We had a really good team. That probably for me was the most frustrating thing about last summer was the team that we had, I think was the best group we've had. And if we would have played our regular season, I think we'd have made a really good run to, get to the playoffs and make a run for things. So that was frustrating, but then also in the same respect, exciting because these guys had a great experience. And I think a lot of them are going to rejoin us and be part of what we're going to do in 2021.
Well, hopefully we look forward to hopefully seeing a full slate of games next year and seeing the success continue. Mike, part of that success, fingers crossed, knock on wood, do whatever we have to do, Ouija boards, whatever we can do. Mike, part of the success that I've seen firsthand, having gone to a couple of the matches out there, is the fan support. You're still in your infancy, really, 3 years in, but you're averaging over 1,000 fans a game prior to the pandemic. How were you able to kind of keep that community engaged when they weren't physically allowed to be there in the numbers that we've seen in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think, I think the thing that we try to do is involve the fans in everything that we do, wherever we can. And so I don't think it's one of those things where when the switch gets turned off and COVID is here, it's hard to build that out of thin air. And so I think we developed a really good relationship with our supporters group, Defenders of the Bridge. We keep our fans involved from a season ticket jersey standpoint. We have them vote on the design of the jersey. We tried, like we were talking about earlier, there wasn't a lot of new information that we knew that we could plan upon. But whenever we got anything from the league that we could share with our fans, we did that. We were trying to be real proactive and let folks know that, we were still going to make an attempt to play. And so I think because we've run it like a grassroots organization, I think we've got one-to-one relationships with a lot of our season ticket holders and a lot of our fans. And I think we know people by name. Chris and his coaching staff and the players have all been out in the community for the last 3+ years now. And so, I think that there's just Chris mentioned the team was really tight knit. I think our fan base is tight knit. And I think that they wanted to be able to get out there and support the team whenever that time would come. And so, I think we gave, when it looked like we were not going to play the type of schedule that we had initially planned on playing, we gave all of our fans the option of either deferring their season tickets to 2021, getting a refund, or just continuing on as though the pandemic wasn't happening. We had less than a dozen people ask for their season tickets to even be deferred. Everybody stuck with us. And now not everybody came out to the games for obvious reasons. Some people weren't comfortable or couldn't, or, we're also playing kind of on a little bit of a different calendar than we normally would have been, where we were delayed by about, what would you say, Chris, almost a month and a half, 2 months?
Yeah, 6 weeks potentially, yeah.
So, there was lots of reasons why maybe it wouldn't be the same, but I think our fans have become attached and committed to the club and want to see it be successful. So it was really heartwarming, because I think you understand what people are going through economically in that time period where so many people are losing jobs. You've got illness all over the place. There's all kinds of reasons to say, hey, give me my money back. But we had almost nobody do that. It was really incredible.
It's a testament to the support that you've grown since this idea came to be. And kind of talking about that idea, I mentioned the word grassroots, you mentioned the word grassroots. The story of how the team was formed and how you came up with the idea, it always makes me laugh. And I love reading about it and talking to you about it, because you honestly were going through, as you mentioned, a social media brain drain one night, and you came across an article on how a guy started a professional soccer team in the Hudson Valley up in New York.
Yeah.
And he gave you revenues, expenses, pro forma, everything that went into it.
Right.
And from there, you took the idea and ran with it. Kind of give people a little bit of insight and perspective as to how it started from point A to where we are now.
Yeah. So, I was just waiting for my young son to fall asleep, and I was scrolling through Twitter, and I came across an article in Sports Illustrated by Grant Wall, who had written an article, like you said, about Kingston Stockade, and Dennis Crowley had started a team up in Kingston, New York. And they were playing in a league that, I've been involved in sports my whole career. I'd never heard of that league before. But what I was reading is that they were drawing crowds of 1,000 people a game in a town of only 20,000 people. If 5% of your city's population is turning out for anything, that's a lot. And so I was reading through it, and it just sounded really fun. My son had started to play a little bit of soccer. My two co-founders, their kids are some of their kids are a little bit older. They were playing on more advanced teams and playing FIFA video games. And I was thinking, man, we don't have any games for to bring your family out to a soccer game the way that you can bring your family out to see the Norfolk Tides or the Admirals or somebody like that. We don't have that for soccer. There's really not a good fan experience option unless you drive all the way up to Richmond, which we had done several times. But with young kids, getting up to Richmond and back, even on a Saturday night, was tough. And so we started thinking about, could we do something like this in Hampton Roads, and would it be well supported? Could we get the 1,000 people that are coming out to the games in little bitty Kingston, New York? Could we do that here, in one of the country's top 50 media markets? It seemed like there was a lot of soccer being played at the youth level, but the one thing that was missing was just that was that almost like a minor league baseball experience for soccer, And so we started trying to figure out where could we play, what league could we join, Is there anybody out there that wants to coach the team? We found somebody that want to do that. Yeah, exactly. Right. We found the guy. And so, sorry, Chris. And then, so, all these pieces started to fall into place. We really, before we fully committed to doing any of it, we really went around and were asking people, is this, it's great if, we want to do it, but the whole community has to want to be a part of it. There's got to be a lot of community support. Chris talked about, we bring in a lot of players from out of town. We need host families. We need sponsors. We need volunteers. We need interns. We got to have a staff of people really to be able to pull it off. And then, I think the thing that was, once we kind of realized there is going to be that kind of support there, that's when I think we really kind of committed to going forward with it. And then we went out and hired the right guy for the job to be able to run the soccer side of the house, to be able to bring in a team that was really ultimately, at the end of the day, is going to represent the community, and wear the shirt and make people proud to say that they play for a team here in this community.
Well, talking about Chris, Chris, your day job day job is head coach of Chowan University. So you are the full-time coach down at Chowan. What drew you to this opportunity in between your seasons?
Yeah, so in my younger years, a few pounds ago, I played in this league.
Are we talking LBs or are we talking pounds as in money? Which one?
Probably both. Now I've got a wife and 2 kids. So, but yeah, I played in this league. Loved this league. I played for a team called the West Virginia Chaos, and I think I was there for 5 years and a player captain. That's actually how I met my wife, playing for that team. But it was always, for me, I enjoyed this league because I thought it was a really special way. I'd played professionally. I was at the end of my career when playing in this league. I enjoyed it because I felt it was a great way to help young guys as they play through college and maybe put them in those shop windows we talked about. So I knew about the league. My concern when taking it over was, is this thing going to be done professionally? And that was a question I had for Mike when Mike talked to me about the job. I didn't, I've got a full-time job. I'm very committed to Chowan, and we've got a good team, so I'm very busy with that. I didn't want to have to be doing, I just wanted to really worry about soccer things and things that were pertinent to the team. And when Mike told me about all the things he got going on, I was like, wow, this is definitely something I want to be a part of. And then I sit back, Mike, do you remember when we went to, was it Buffalo Wild Wings that first year? And we had, no, it wasn't. It was the brewery we went to. We had like a host party.
Yeah.
Before we'd even had a game. It was ridiculous. It was like 100 and something people there. We'd never even kicked a ball. And people were singing songs about the team and cheering. And I was just taken back. And it was one of those where I kind of straight away from that, I was like, this community needs this. And this is something that's going to be really, really special. We need to do our very, very best and put a great product out there. And that's something we've always talked to the boys about, is that you're not just representing the team and the name and the badge, you represent ourselves as a program, but you are representing this community. And that's something that's really big. And for me, and I hear people all the time talk about, we're a family in athletics and sports. I think it's even bigger than a family. This, for me, there's so much involvement. One of our games was 3,500 people there. And it's a special, special environment, especially when we're able to play at C&U under the lights and the fireworks. And it's not just a soccer game. It's something it's a real event. And that's something that I think brings people together of all, in the world that we live in right now. You've got people from all different cultures, religions, creeds. And it's a really, really neat thing to see people from all over the world embracing each other and having a great experience. And for me, that's something that, I look forward to my summer months and looking forward to it again this summer.
Mike, you talk about how you're starting this thing from scratch, and you really don't know what to expect until that first ball is kicked. But Chris just mentioned that first, I guess, initial party at the brewery with 100 people and the ball hasn't been kicked yet. Was that the moment that you realized this was pretty realistic, or was there another moment in that process where you said, this is going to work?
We had all kinds of indications that it was looking good, right? I mean, that party was one of them. We were amazed that people were buying season tickets before we'd ever kicked a ball and before we'd even announced a schedule. And I remember when that
gotta know what you're buying tickets for, right?
Yeah, when that first email came in, I remember being, oh my God, like this is gonna happen, but you never feel that comfortable with it until you see that, people really do, when you fling open the gates and you kind of go, all right, are they really coming? Because I know they bought the tickets, and I remember, our first home game, it was pouring buckets at noon. It was absolutely coming down. And our festival area where we've got the beer tent and the bounce houses for the kids and all that stuff, it's underwater. And I'm thinking, and I still have a video of it that I've refused to delete off my phone, because I remember thinking, what have we done? Like, this has been a huge mistake. And we had more than and that was on a Wednesday night in May. It was on a school night, and we still had more than 1,000 people out there that night. And we put up a big number. We won that game 5-1. And the people that were there, it was almost like they didn't want, normally if you go to a sporting event on a weeknight and the results kind of already in hand, people start trickling out. Nobody left. Everyone stayed until the final whistle. And you felt great about that night, but then you're like, all right, were we a one-hit wonder, or is this gonna happen again? So I don't think you ever feel like you never feel that comfortable with it, because you always kind of think about all the different things that can go wrong, or maybe not break your way. So I'm not sure we still even feel that way sometimes. But I think that there's the thing that's been amazing is, again, pre-COVID, there has only been one game that we've played in 3 seasons where we had less than 1,000 people there. And as Chris said, we've had games where we had, 3,500 people out there, 2,500 people out there. And so, our fans have been really consistent and really dedicated. And it seems like they'll be there, rain or shine, Wednesday or Saturday, whatever day of the week we're playing, and under any circumstances. And so, you like I said, you never feel, and maybe it's just my personality, but I'm always kind of a little bit worried about what may be lying around the bend. But I think it's probably fair to say some of that stuff is a little bit unfounded at this point, knowing that we have the support that we have in the community.
This question might be for both of you. Chris, you said you played in this league, but I think it was called something different back then. I know that there's been a little bit of a reorganization and a reshuffling of the professional ranks of U.S. soccer, but kind of talk about USL League 2 for somebody who's just learning about this now. What kind of play can they expect? Where does it fit in, and where does Lionsbridge fit in the hierarchy of professional soccer in the U.S.?
Mike, you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, the league USL 2 was formerly the Professional Development League, the PDL. It was known as the PDL for years. It is the 4th tier in US soccer. So you've got the MLS, which is DC United, for example, and then you have the USL Championship,
yeah,
and then USL 1, right, Mike?
You got it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Pass that quiz.
There you go. Pass that one. Yeah.
Time for double jeopardy.
So those first 3 leagues are full professional. So we're a semi-professional amateur league, whatever you want to call it. So we're kind of that next tier. So ultimately, I look at it in terms of, if I was talking to an American who didn't know much about soccer, I would analogize it in a minor league baseball way, that we're kind of like the farm team. We're maybe the farm team for our guys do well. Can they then succeed and then get a professional contract at the bigger club in the league above? And if they do that well in that league, then they'll go to the league above. So Joe Rice, for example, was our goalkeeper 3 years ago, Mike? Yeah.
In 18, yeah.
18. Got a professional contract after he played for us with the Richmond Kickers. Then got another professional contract with the New England Revolution 2. So he's gone up another league again. Now he's been doing very well. He got injured, but he was doing really, really well. And then the MLS team are now looking at him really, really closely. So I think that's it's just a kind of a stepping stone kind of thing if you look at the pyramid in that respect. Is that fair to describe that way, Mike? Do you think or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the league has developed a reputation for just being a springboard to people's professional careers. And so
yeah.
I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say, for maybe the last 7 or 8 years, when the Major League Soccer draft would happen, 70% of the players that were drafted in MLS had come through this league at some point in time. So, there may be a lot of guys, especially the younger guys, that are elite level college soccer players who have excellent chances to playing professional careers. I don't think there's hardly anybody on our roster that either hasn't played professionally or has designs on becoming a professional soccer player and being able to play, either in the US or abroad. And so, I think with that, the guys take it pretty seriously. It doesn't, it's a summer league, but it's a proven pathway. I think not just with our team, but plenty of teams in the league that have sent guys into the professional ranks. So, we're playing against the best. We're playing with and against the best college soccer players you'll find anywhere in America.
Well, and that's, I love the comparison to the minor leagues of Major League Baseball, because when you're out in Salem, Virginia, at a Class A game, the names might not jump off the page at you, but it's about what is coming through that stadium and what has come through that stadium over history. And then you just see the progression. And so that's really where I think you get the excitement, is that because you guys are still so new, it might be, you have the Joe Rices, but it might be another 3 or 4 years before you can really say, well, that guy, this guy, that guy. And the next thing you know, they start to kind of build the history and the legacy of the team. And I think that's a great analogy. In 2019, you were actually designated the USL 2 Franchise of the Year. What went into that designation?
MAGFEST.
I'm assuming you just want me to answer that question, because I'm sure that's not the answer to that. That's not the answer to that question. You're just asking me to answer that question. The short answer is, I think it's the community support. I mean, I think we've been fortunate to lead the league in attendance, at least in the Eastern Conference, for the last 3 years. And I think it's just a testament to the support that we get, both from fans and also from sponsors. Our host families, just really everybody, that kind of all the different local area youth soccer organizations that we work with as well. I think all those things end up adding up into an amazing game day experience. And when we stream our games, and we've had the games on television before as well, people see that and they hear that atmosphere, and it, I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but it doesn't sound like many other places in our league. I mean, we go on the road, more often than not, the conversation that we have with clubs from the other teams in the league. And actually, I think it was Jalen Brown, one of our players from the first year. I wish I could remember who we were playing, but there was a I think the ball had rolled out of play, or maybe there was a free kick, but one of the players from the opposing team, it was the night when we had 2,500 people out there, asked Jalen, "Is it always like this?" And I think that was a player, and he was talking about, he was kind of, pointing up at the crowd. I mean, I think that's the reason why those types of things come together. It's not because of any one person or any one thing. I think it's just kind of a compilation of everything that's gone into it over the course of several years.
Will,
you mentioned
can I add to that, Will?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike won't take credit, so I'm going to give him a bit of credit. I think also we did have a decent team on the field that year. We actually led the league for the longest out of anybody, but then fell away at the end. So it wasn't because we were the best team in the league. We had a pretty good team, and as coaches, our goal is to win the league. But I think we do as good a job as anybody in the league with this social media presence. And I'm rubbish on social media personally. I've only just got Twitter. But Mike does a fantastic job. The staff do a great job with that. And I think that's a massive piece of how society looks at things nowadays. Facebook, Twitter, what's the other ones?
Instagram.
Yeah, there you go.
We can name them for you.
Yeah, you guys can name me. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know about them. But they do a fantastic job with that. And yes, we've got unbelievable crowds. We've got great fan support. We've got all these brilliant things. But the way it's portrayed and how it's put out there into the community, into how it's seen, for me, recruiting for this team is so easy. I basically just said, look, just jump on the website, guys. I don't need to say much more. Why would you not want to play in front of 3,000 people on a competitive team and have a chance to win things? And then we've got a bunch of guys going pro. So I think there's all of those pieces to it. But Mike, and he doesn't take credit, but he should do, is a big part of, his staff and people who work for him and himself have really done a fantastic job with that. And it's really cool to be a part of. So we can't take any credit for that.
One of the matches that I took my family to was actually the exhibition against the Richmond Kickers last year. And for those who don't know, Richmond Kickers, they're one of the oldest continuously run soccer franchises in the country. And they're actually currently owned by one of our Hall of Famers, Rob Ucrop. And they are in USL 1, correct? So they are a step above USL 2. But kind of talk about that partnership between you and Rob and the Kickers and Lionsbridge, and how that benefits your players and your team and your organization from being able to bring them down from just up the road on 64.
Well, I'll talk about the business end of it, and Chris can talk about it from a soccer side, because I think we were going to be doing more from a soccer side of things in 2020 before things kind of got derailed there. But I think going back a little bit to that origin story, we'd spent a lot of time going to Richmond Kickers games before we even had a thought about Lionsbridge. And so we had a ton of respect for what is still the longest continuously running professional soccer team in America. They've been around since the early 90s. They draw great crowds up there, really well run. And then the thing that anybody can see that from the outside, what we didn't know is how generous they are in terms of helping build the game. And they were our biggest fans as we were trying to figure out, some of the things that we didn't know early on, from a business standpoint and also from a soccer standpoint for me personally before Chris came on board. And so I think there was they were always very supportive in that realm. And so, we had always said, we'd love to get you guys to come down to the peninsula someday, and expecting that probably wouldn't happen because not a lot of pro teams are going to go on the road to go play a team at our level. It's just not, it's atypical, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we tossed it out there, they're like, yeah, we'd love to do that. We'd love to, and we'd love to be able to have a more formal relationship with the club also on the soccer side, because I think they see that there's some benefits from their end of things. It helps grow their brand down here from a business standpoint. From a soccer side, I think they felt like there were some benefits to it too. So I would leave it to Chris to kind of pick up the story from there.
Yeah, in terms of soccer side of it, we'll talk about that game. They were very good that day and we were very poor, and they won convincingly. We thought that was a great opportunity for our guys to showcase what they can do, but also show them that some of you guys have still got a ways to go. So ultimately, you always want to challenge yourself, and it was a great chance for our guys to do that. In terms of what we've been talking about in soccer-wise relationships this last year, we were going to try and send some of our guys up to train with them on a regular basis. So if they had guys that they were potentially interested, they could go and practice with their team. We don't practice every day of the week. So maybe they could go 1 or 2 days a week and showcase what they could do to the pro team there. And then at the same time, potentially, let's say they had a young player that they were interested in who, let's say financially their roster was full and they didn't have the funds to sign this player or something along those lines, or they had, for example, let's say already had 2 very good goalkeepers, but they had a third one they wanted to develop. Maybe we could have organized some relationship. That's our plan, was to have a relationship where maybe some of those guys could come and play for us. And they're kind of underneath that all-seeing eye of Richmond, getting to playing some quality games in front of crowds, which is a big thing, playing in front of a crowd. Not many college soccer games get 3,000 people at them. So putting these guys in those sorts of environments and letting them experience that while also being seen by their kind of parent club, if that makes sense. So that's something we talked about. There's league rules that we're going to obviously have to follow within that. But yeah, I think ultimately having good relationships with people, like anything, it's better to have a good relationship than a bad relationship, isn't it? So
well, and you both mentioned that, Richmond is one thing that drew you to them is how focused they are on growing the game. And particularly at the lower levels, that's really a key component. The high levels, you already have the TV contracts, you have the sponsors, you're just looking to turn over revenue and make sure you stay viable. But at the lower levels, it really is about growing the sport. Chris, I'm really, really interested to hear from your perspective, obviously not being a local, even though I hope people didn't believe that earlier when I said that. But, where do you see soccer right now in the U.S. and its growth over the last quarter century? What is its place and where can it go?
Yeah, great question. Well, firstly, I'm originally from Nottinghamshire in England. So Northern England, came to America very similar to the time period that you're talking about. I came over here in 2001 on a scholarship. Went to a school called Mercyhurst College. And when I got there, I tell this story all the time, is there was hardly ever soccer games on the TV. And I remember in our dorm room or apartment, we all chipped in and bought a Fox Soccer channel. And you get one game on a week. So It was kind of like, but one game a week then was awesome. And now you look at it, it's NBC have done a fantastic job. And it's on Peacock and it's on ESPN and Sports Center. And soccer's growing and growing and growing. And it's massively grown. The stats are now, it's the most played youth sport out of any of the sports. I don't want to say a quote, but I know in terms of the attendance across the board, it's getting up there and it's rivaling some of the more traditional major American sports. I think it's one of those where it's the world's game, and I just think MLS have done a really good job of being sustainable. I think, you look at world soccer, they've had football in England since, the 18 something, I think is when the league started.
They say they invented it.
Yeah, well, we did. Others may disagree. I wouldn't say we're the best at it right now, but we definitely invented it. But I think it's just time, sustainability. How long have they been playing baseball and basketball and football in these countries? And that didn't take off straight away. So I do think they've got the model right now. And now the more, I've said this in the past, the more and more that you get clubs in smaller communities, and then you get people connecting to those clubs and you get more people playing, I think that's going to make it better and better and better. And you think, like, let's say just use Britain, for example, or England. Every small town has a team, and then people go and watch their local team. So you support your local team, and then you support the big team. So it'd be like someone in baseball, you support the Tides, but you like the Yankees, for example, or the Braves or whoever. I think, the way the game's going in this country right now, I'd love it if, people are Lionsbridge fans, but then also love the LA Galaxy or whatever because of who they've got on that team. And I think that's the way the game's going. How many franchises are in the USL 2, Mike? Now I see every week another franchises starting, right? Or teams are joining.
They're across the country. There's about 80 teams in USL League 2, stretching from coast to coast. And so,
so you all play in regional pockets.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like it's similar to like having a conference in college sports.
And then there's other leagues as well. And there's other leagues that are out there that are, probably not as well run as our league, but are still providing a quality soccer product as well in other markets. And, we'll sometimes play some of those teams, cross league games. But ultimately, I think the more that people play the game and more everybody, for example, now, parents now, there's a very good likelihood that sort of parent of children now played soccer 15, 20 years ago. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like, it takes time because now people are evolving and learning it more. Like, Mike, when you were a kid, did you play soccer?
I did.
What was your position?
Goalkeeper.
Okay. Did you play soccer well as a kid?
I did. I was a defender, and then it conflicted with baseball season, so I switched over to baseball. But
to
your point, Chris, I mean, my dad didn't play soccer growing up.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I mean, it was quite literally a foreign concept to him when I was playing as a kid. Whereas it doesn't work that way for parents now. I mean, a lot of parents, both moms and dads, played soccer growing up, and to, I think, to our generation, it is a mainstream sport.
100%. That's kind of what I think I was saying there.
Yeah.
Parents are going to take their kids to the game, and everybody understands the game now.
Right.
So.
Well, it's amazing how this conversation today, how different this would have been a quarter century ago. And, 25 years in the grand scheme of things doesn't seem that long. And it's just really been amazing to see how it's grown, and amazing to see the progress that you guys have helped contribute to that. And, I'm hoping that 2021 for all of us is a bit different than 2020. But I do want to thank both of you for taking the time out today. And I know that your supporters are itching to get back out there to see you guys play. So thank you guys again for joining us today.
Will, really appreciate it. Glad to do it anytime.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, appreciate it once again. Let's go Bridge.
That's right. Let's go Bridge. So everybody, be sure to follow Lionsbridge on Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Lionsbridge FC. As always, I'd like to thank all of our partners here at the Hall of Fame for helping us put this on: City of Virginia Beach, Priority Automotive, Optima Health, DAVCon, ESPN Radio, and the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. Be sure to follow us on social media. All of our handles are at VA Sports HOF. Once again, I'm Will Driscoll. I'd like to thank MAGFEST, Chris Whalley, and hope everybody continues to stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we're all going to be seeing a lot more live sporting events in 2021. Get out there and vote next Tuesday. We'll see everybody next time.
Cheers, guys.